Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming on short notice. I'm happy to be able to let you all know that after a good deal of time negotiating and working on the issues surrounding standardbred horse racing here in the state, that we have been able to reach an agreement with the Standardbred Owners Association and those associated and supportive of them regarding the continuation of standardbred racing at the Meadowlands. Let me go over some of the particulars of it for you, but to emphasize a few things off the top. It has always been this administration's position that we wanted standardbred horse racing to continue in New Jersey and continue to be an active part of the state's entertainment and sports landscape. We also, though, had an additional concern that had to be addressed given these economic times. The legislators standing with me understand that, having gone through the budget crisis that we've had last year and the one that we continue to be, that the ability of the state to continue to give ongoing subsidies to these type of enterprises is significantly restricted by the difficult economic times we're in and the demands that are placed upon us because of those challenges. And so we had to find a way to try to bridge those two objectives together. To continue to have standardbred horse racing be an important part of our state's landscape, and also to make sure that the era of subsidy to this business would be coming to a conclusion due to the economic times that we're in. We believe that this agreement has been able to bridge that gap. Standardbred racing at the Meadowlands will be happening in January, according to its regular course, and I would expect that both the Sports Authority and the Racing Commission next week will confirm the schedules that will happen for this year. For the next 3 months, the Standardbred Owners Association, Mr. Corral, will have the exclusive right to negotiate a lease for the Meadowlands racetrack from the date the term sheet is signed through March 31st of 2011. In the event that an agreement on a lease for the Meadowlands racetrack is not reached, the Sports Authority will suspend standardbred racing at the Meadowlands racetrack for the rest of the year, with a possible exception for the Hamiltonian meet. The Standardbred Owners Association pledges its right to receive simulcasting dollars for purse money from the signal coming into the Meadowlands beginning on April 1st of 2011 to cover the operating expenses of the Sports Authority for running the races in the first quarter, including a fair allocation for the pilots. So in other words, the state is going to front a loan to the Standardbred Owners Association to cover expenses of the first quarter, that loan being secured by the revenue from simulcasting that will begin on April 1st. And so this is a secured loan from the state to allow for a period of time for racing to continue during a very important part of the racing season for the standardbred horses, and to allow us the time to be able to negotiate a longer-term agreement to continue racing. All the partners agree that as of April 1st, the state will no longer be subsidizing harness racing at the Meadowlands. All parties agree they'll use their best efforts to develop a plan that will allow the Meadowlands to operate as a private facility without continuing state subsidy as of April 1st, 2011. In the event an agreement is not reached on or before March 31st to allow for the Meadowlands to be leased to the private sector, all parties have said a good faith effort was made, and we will no longer have any obligation going forward to do this. Really what we're trying to do here is to allow the standardbred owners and Mr. Corral, who has stepped forward as someone who's interested in pursuing the private operation of the Meadowlands for standardbred racing, to have an opportunity to make sure that this is something that is financially feasible as a private sector effort. And I did not think it was unreasonable to give the standardbred owners and Mr. Corral, the standardbred owners, given their long history here in the state and their multiple contributions to the life of our state, and Mr. Corral, given his experience already of success at Tioga Downs, to be able to try to bring that same model here to the Meadowlands and allow there to be a private sector solution to continuing standardbred racing here in the Meadowlands. The state will work with the interested parties up here regarding the length of a lease for the Meadowlands, if it's seemed to be feasible, the assignment of OTWs to the Standardbred Owners Association for their ability to build them, and then take the lion's share of the revenues from the OTW to support standardbred operations moving forward. But it's clear from April 1st forward that there will no longer be any state subsidy either for operations or purses in the standardbred industry. What we're trying to do is to work together to create a model in the private sector that will allow for those things to continue in a way that's profitable, and Mr. Corral has shown that that's possible at Tioga Downs, and all of the folks up here, the legislators, and the people from Standardbred Owners Association and Mr. Corral all want to take a legitimate chance at making sure that we can do it the right way. The state has an interest in doing that as well. We want to make sure racing continues, but we also want to make sure that we keep faith with the taxpayers by not having a subsidy go any further. I think in that sense, everyone up here is in agreement. And so obviously, while these agreements ultimately, over the long term, will be subject to approvals by the Sports Authority, the Racing Commission, and the Attorney General, if there's any legislation that is needed to effectuate this at the end of the day, they have my word that I will work as hard as I can to make sure that gets done, and given the legislators we have standing up here and the ferocity of their support on this issue, I've got a feeling we'll do pretty well. In the end, I want to repeat again that we had two interests that were completely valid interests that needed to be dealt with. The desire of everybody standing up here, and thousands of other people in the state, to have the standardbred business continue and thrive here in New Jersey, both from a breeding perspective and a racing perspective. Secondly, to make sure that we all kept faith with the taxpayers and that we remain consistent, that the budget has to be trimmed in every way that it can, and in ways that are not absolutely necessary, we have to stop spending the public money. The Standardbred Owners Association, the representatives, and the folks who make that organization up are taxpayers too. And they understand the need for us to continue to do this, but they also feel very strongly about wanting to keep this a New Jersey business. I do as well. And so with this agreement, we are able to put forward, I believe, a common sense plan, which is what I've been saying all along. Let's have a plan to make the standardbred business a viable private business moving forward. And if there was a period of time in there where the state needed a bridge to help to make that happen, I'd be willing to do it, but I had to see a plan that looked viable. Over the last 2 days, we have seen a plan that looks viable. Viable not only from the state's perspective, but also from the standardbred owner's perspective, and potentially from Mr. Corral's perspective as well. And so now we're going to have the next 3 months not only to have racing happen, and during this period of time, this is generally the most profitable time for harness racing this first quarter of the year, because of the lack of competition from other entertainment options and sporting options. And so during that period of time, let's let the races continue. The state is willing to make the investment of fronting that money. The standardbred owners have said they're willing to secure that investment on our part with simulcast revenue that comes after April 1st of this year. And so everybody is getting the opportunity to look at this in an objective way. But that the goals will be met as of April 1st. We will either have an executed plan to have a thriving, ongoing private sector run and supported standard racing business, and we will have the state out of the business of the subsidy of both operation and purses in the standardbred industry. So I want to thank everybody who is up here. The members of the Standardbred Owners Association, many of whom I've had the opportunity to work with before, I want to thank them for their patience and their persistence and their support of this industry in New Jersey. I want to thank Mr. Corral for stepping forward and showing his interest of trying to make a private sector model work here in New Jersey. I think it's safe to say that his entry onto the scene was one of the game changers in our ability to be able to reach this, and so we look forward to working with him. I also want to thank the legislators who are standing with me, Senator Beck, Senator Thompson, Senator Dancer, Senator Malone, Senator Rival, and others who are not here today, like Senator Carlos, who have shown great support for this industry and have continued to try to work constructively towards an agreement and a path to go forward. I thank them for their persistence. I had a great conversation yesterday with Senator Beck where I said to her, I'm sure with your leadership, Jennifer, we're going to get this done. And she provided that leadership in order to help me to get it done, and I will always be grateful to her, as with the other members of the legislature as well, for their willingness to continue to talk. I also want to thank, in my counsel's office, Jeff Chiesa and most especially Craig Domilewski, who have spent countless hours on this project to try to bring it to a conclusion. They both have done an extraordinary job under always pressurized circumstances in order to get it to a successful conclusion. So for those who said that we could not get this done, couldn't find a way to do this with the private sector, we are happy to once again confound the experts. And it's because everybody around here is committed to the goal of trying to make sure that our state restores itself to fiscal health, but at the same time doesn't lose valuable industries and businesses in our state that help to support a lot of the great functions that we have here. So thank you all very much. I'm happy to take questions.